evening. I'd like to call the regular board meeting back to public session. If there's a motion for such action, please. Mrs. Leatherbarrow, is there a second? Mr. Meyer, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. All board members are present this evening except Dr. Venator. Mr. Mecca, would you please lead us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency, an evacuation should be necessary. An alarm will sound. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we do ask that everyone please silence their cell phones and any other electronic devices. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Mr. Bornstein, is there a second? Mrs. Beeger, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Recognition, Dr. Martzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Lemay. On February 5th, a bus carrying students from North High School was on its regular afternoon route when one student looked up and saw the driver slumped over. The bus was still moving. Sophomore Jessica Ireland ran to the front of the bus, pulling the emergency brake, checked the driver, and shouted for someone to call 911. Tonight, we are recognizing Jessica along with 3 of her fellow North students who were on the bus that day. Together, their quick thinking and courageous response to a serious situation resulted in everyone getting home safely. Here to introduce us to these heroic students is North High School Principal Andre Thomas.
Good evening. So Dr. Martzloff kind of stole my thunder. I was going to go through and share all that information, but it's okay. But we have these 4 amazing students here this evening. As Dr. Martzloff mentioned, on Tuesday, February 5th, they did a very courageous thing on their bus when their driver lost consciousness. Jessica, acting immediately and checking the driver's pulse and pulling the parking brake and stopping the bus immediately before it caused more damage, property damage in the area where they were driving. Also, Madeline and Tom and Isabella, making sure that their classmates in the bus were safe and calling 911, getting first responders there immediately. Amazing act for high school students to remember the training that they went through with their bus safety drills that we have every year and to respond that quickly. Just amazing. I'm so proud of them. Our school has, we've had a lot of media in our school the last month or so, and we had a pizza party for them the Friday after the event, the incident, and we were just so proud of them. This is something that doesn't happen very often for students this age to respond that quickly in that way. So once again, students, we are amazingly proud of you. Awesome job.
Thomas, would any of the students like to speak?
Oh boy, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I don't want to say that it was a privilege because I just wanted to make sure that he was okay. I never intended for this much attention and this much media to come out of it, but in some way, I'm glad to know that he's okay and that nobody else got hurt in the accident.
Thank you. I'm extremely proud and honored to welcome Williamsville's 2019 New York State Girls Hockey Champions for recognition tonight. After winning the Section 6 championship, the team advanced to the state tournament and literally ran the gauntlet, winning 4 games in 6 days, including an overtime win in the state championship game over Section 3 champs Skinny Atlas. Williamsville's longtime athletic director, the late Dr. James Russin, spearheaded the regional effort to create the Western New York Girls Varsity Ice Hockey Federation. In less than a decade since the league was formed, these outstanding student athletes have brought the state championship crown home to Williamsville. It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Muchika, Instructional Specialist for Physical Education, Health, and Athletics, who will introduce Coach Rick Hopkins and tonight's special recognition.
Thank you, Dr. Martzloff and the board for having us here tonight. And it's a tough act to follow, the boys and girls who really helped with the bus driver. So one more round of applause for those courageous young men and women. I'm very proud of the girls I have behind me tonight to achieve what they've achieved. We have a lot of teams in Williamsville, actually over 200 teams, and they all set a goal at the beginning of the year to be the best that they can be. And for some of those teams, it's a 500 record. Some it might be a league title, division title, a sectional title. For these girls behind me, it was a state title. And state titles are very hard to come by. And you need a lot of luck, you need a lot of talent, you need coaching, and you need parent support. And you can tell from the ladies behind me and their parents behind them, it takes a village. And I think, I don't want to steal Coach Hopkins' thunder, but in his post game, he mentioned what goes into winning a state title. And we don't get girls in 7th or 8th grade who we put skates on and say, you're going to be good. It starts with mom and dad and grandpa and grandma, brothers and sisters at the age that they can walk. And it's sometimes in this country, sometimes in Canada, but these girls and parents have literally put in thousands of hours towards this goal. So they deserve a round of your applause for all they've done for the last 13, 14, 15, 18 years. Congratulations. Just to give you a quick breakdown of where these girls come from, we have 5 South girls, 12 North girls, 3 East girls, and our little ones, 1 at Mill and 2 at Heim, who we're very proud of. And they can't have the guidance and success that they've had without a great coaching staff. And I'd like to bring up Coach Hopkins, who I'm sure is going to talk about Coach Nolan and Coach Claire. But again, Coach Hopkins has been with us since the start. Dr. Martzloff brought up Dr. Russin, and I believe it was 12, 13 years ago where he had a vision to bring girls hockey to Western New York, and I happened to be in that room when it went down that day, and without Dr. Russin, we would not be here today. So thanks to him, and I'd like to bring up Coach Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Muchika and Dr. Martzloff and school board for having us here tonight in recognition of this great accomplishment. And you know, funny, Dr. Russin had the vision, and it was 15 years ago I met with him when we talked about what we had to do to get girls varsity ice hockey on the ice to make it happen. And it took us 5 years before the puck dropped. And there's a great picture of Jim dropping that ceremonial puck with the captain of that first team, who it's come full circle. The last time I was in here for girls ice hockey was 15 years ago, and I didn't do any speaking that night, but there were a bunch of elementary and middle school girls dressed in their house league and travel jerseys, and one of them was Shauna Claire. And it's great that she's back on the coaching staff. She was senior year captain the first team, and we were fortunate. The only other championship season we had was that first year when we won the Federation title. And I was so excited for the girls and the team and for Jim. And I'll never forget coming off the ice that night at the Northtown Center. He looked at me with a big smile, a handshake, and a hug. He said, your job's safe for another year. So, Mr. Muchika, maybe you'll have me around for one more season, because it's been a lot of fun coaching every season, especially this group. And, when you have 3 middle school or 4 middle schools and 3 high schools, it takes a lot of the girls coming together to work as a team, especially when they're bitter rivals in field hockey or softball or lacrosse. And just a very unselfish, humble group this year that came together and believed in the goals and played their best hockey at the late in the season at the most important time. But more importantly than the championship trophy and the sectional title and the state title, they're champions off the ice, because the coaches, we take so much pride when we get the compliments from the bus drivers and the waiters and the waitresses and the rink staff on what a fine group of young ladies they are. And that's what we try to instill in them, is, you know, carrying themselves with pride and class off the ice as well as on the ice. But it was a great season, and I'd also like to recognize Coach Nolan, who's been with the program since day one. She works with the goalies, and Coach Claire, to have her come back and give back to the program and help get this started has been great. And the girls represented the district, carrying that W on their chest, you know, representing all the whole district was something else, and something we can all be proud of. And it does take a community to build a championship team, and it's the parents and the travel coaches and the phys ed teachers and the great mentors that they have on the rink and in the classrooms at Williamsville. Without further ado, I'd like to call up the 4 captains who are going to introduce themselves briefly, and our 2 captains are going to speak briefly about their thoughts on the season. But thank you again for this honor this evening. Much appreciated.
Hi, I'm Sam Ingham, and I'm a junior at Williamsville North, and I'm an assistant captain.
I'm Jonna Cavalieri. I'm a junior at Williamsville East, and I'm also an assistant captain.
Hi, my name is Emma Rowland, and I am one of the captains for this team. I'm in 11th grade and go to Williamsville North. I would like to thank you all, along with prior board members, who helped us start our program over 9 years ago. To give a little background, we have a unique situation compared to most high school sports that consist of only one high school. We are made up of all 3 Williamsville high schools, along with the 4 middle schools. High school sports are something special for many reasons. Specifically, they give people something to be a part of with their peers who have common interests and goals as them. High school sports are a great demonstration of sportsmanship, and seeing your school and community get behind you like ours did is an incredible feeling. This year, we finished the regular season with 11 wins and 3 losses, placing us in 2nd. We then won 3 playoff games to win the Section 6 championship for the first time in history, or team history. We went on that weekend to play in the state semifinals and finals against Potsdam and Skinny Atlas, who were the champions of their respective sections in the state. We finished that weekend with 2 wins and as state champions. I and the rest of the team thank you for granting us this opportunity 9 years ago, and for the continued support. I'm looking forward to seeing how this program grows. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Sidorsky, and I'm a senior at Williamsville South, and I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of the Williamsville Girls Varsity Ice Hockey Team. I would like to thank the entire Board of Education and our athletic directors for inviting our team here this evening to be acknowledged. Most importantly, we would all like to thank the district for providing the funding that allows our team to exist. I've been a member of this team for the past 6 years now, starting as a 7th grader at Mill Middle. Over these past few years, I've been honored to have met some amazing people and have played with incredibly talented players as well. I remember having to wake up for the 6 a.m. practices and watching as all the girls came in with their pajamas on and the rink lights not even on yet. I didn't know what to expect as a 7th grader, but I had some incredible captains who included me and made me love the sport and the team more and more every day. From that moment on, I knew as I became older that I wanted to do the same for girls who were younger than me as well. I followed the leadership of those who came before me, and I was very excited to lead the team as one of our 4 captains this year. Our team consists of girls from 3 high schools and 2 middle schools this year. On our travel teams and in other sports seasons such as field hockey and lacrosse, we are rivals. But for ice hockey, I think it's incredible that despite the different schools we go to, travel teams we play on, and grade we're in, we're all able to come together as one and play the way we do. As you know, our Winslow team has been Section 6 finalists and Federation finalists many, many times. As for me, I am now in my 16th varsity season and have finally won my first blue patch this year with the Williamsville hockey team. After our season last year and having graduated a large number of seniors, we were not expected to do well and were predicted to be very low in the rankings at the beginning of the year. However, we proved them wrong and decided to write our own story. Before we stepped on the ice against Flop in our Section 6 final game, Coach Hopkins brought us together in a circle and made us hold hands. Although it was a little awkward at first, it soon made sense what Hopkins' intentions were. A circle is unbreakable, and just like that circle, so is this team. We share such a powerful family bond that nobody can break down, and our connection will never falter. Soon after, we played our song, Young, Wild, and Free, to which Hopkins somehow made a connection of that in his pre-game speech as well. And from that moment on, we were destined to beat the defending state champions and win not only for ourselves, but for the coaches as well. It was an unbelievable feeling as we won in overtime against Flop, and it was an outcome that few thought would happen. As we continued on into states and went into another overtime, it was just another chance for us to show others how determined we were to never give up and win. As I rewatched the clip of us scoring our game-winning goal, I still get chills as I realize that actually happened. Each and every player contributed to our team's success. Not everyone scored a goal or had a lot of playing time, but everyone played their part. Winning in the 2 overtimes just showed the persistence, energy, and heart we had to accomplish this goal. Winning the state and Section 6 title is a memory I will carry forever, but the family we created with the coaches and teammates and my friendships with this incredible group of girls is what I will cherish the most. I cannot imagine a finer group of girls to share this accomplishment with. I'd like to give a huge thanks to our coaching staff, Coach Hopkins, Coach Nolan, Coach Claire, and Coach Leonard, for not only helping us to become a better team, but believing in us the entire journey. Coach Hopkins has never doubted our abilities the entire year, and nothing has made me happier than watching Coach Hopkins' face light up as he watched the team win the state's championships. At that moment, I was more excited to win it for him than I was to win it for myself. I know we'll be losing some people this year to either graduation or switching schools, but I wish everybody the best of luck in their future and on their travel teams. Next year, I will be attending the University of Rochester to play Division III field hockey and majoring in mathematics and computer science. I won't be there to watch the success that this team brings next year, but I hope for the best and can't wait to see what becomes of Willville hockey in the future. Stay young, wild, and free, girls. You deserve all that has come from this year.
It's pretty unique. It's pretty unique for all the circumstances. Rare experience.
Are there any other board acknowledgements to be shared this evening? Mrs. Beeger.
Yeah, I would like to acknowledge Williamsville North. Over the end of the weekend, they put on the Addams Family musical, For anyone who was lucky enough to attend this performance, it was just amazing, from the cast, all the work that went behind it, everything involved. It was a really impressive project, so congratulations to North and everyone involved in that musical. Very great work.
McCleary.
Mine's very short because I was going to comment that I had the opportunity to see the Williamsville North musical, and what a good job they did, and as Mrs. Beeger already commented, so I will add my congratulations to them as well as to the other schools as they've had their various dramas and musicals throughout the year.
Are there any other board comments? Yes, Mrs. Leatherbarrow.
On February 28th, I was able to attend SEPSA's Parent Night. It was an overview of depression and anxiety in children, and it was presented by a licensed mental health counselor who is also a district alumni. And it was just really a helpful overview of signs and symptoms of depression and anxiety. And it really provided a lot of tools and strategies for parents for responding to their students and to help so that we're not triggering some of the behaviors. I just really appreciated the event. It seemed to have a really good turnout. And side note, a point of interest, just a takeaway that I got from it was that so much of the anxiety that we're seeing in our students does have a correlation to the screen time that our children are being exposed to, both in school and out of school. And I think that that's really important for us as a board going forward, and as our district goes forward, to consider that, the impact of screens on our children. So thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. Any other board acknowledgements? No? Okay. Mrs. Beeger, would you please read the board's public expression statement?
Sure. Welcome to all who have come to observe this regular board meeting. Per Policy 1510, the board has set aside 30 minutes for public expression, a time when we invite members of the community to share their ideas and concerns with us. We welcome this opportunity to hear from you. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. You will be signaled with a yellow flag at 2.5 minutes so that you can conclude your remarks. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in dialogue with members of the community this evening. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and we take seriously what you have to say. I would also like to ask that you demonstrate respect for us and for one another by speaking to your issues, giving us ideas, sharing your opinions, but not engaging in any attack. Thank you for your cooperation. And our first speaker is Crystal Kazmarek-Bogner.
Hi, good evening. I'm Crystal Kazmarek-Bogner, co-president of Williamsville Special Education PTSA and facilitator of SEPSA's Gifted Programming Group. Although my role in SEPSA has informed my views, I'm speaking tonight not on behalf of SEPSA, but as the proud parent of 2 students in the district. First, thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, for acknowledging SEPSA's February program. And I would also like to thank the board for your service and for increasing opportunities for the public to express their views to you. I have found the community forums to be especially helpful in allowing a more open exchange of ideas. From my interactions with many of you, I recognize that you have the best interests of our students and children at heart. I also appreciate that you are in the difficult position of addressing many educational needs within budget constraints. That said, we are fortunate to be in a district that funds gifted programming specialists and services. Beginning in 1979, our district was involved in the pilot of the Levels of Service approach to talent development and continues to utilize this model, which is designed to search for, recognize, and develop talents and strengths in all of our nearly 10,000 enrolled students. Previously, there were 2 teachers in every elementary and 1 in every middle school who specialized in gifted programming. With the elimination of the IDEAS program, we lost 6 teachers who focused on recognizing talents and providing foundational skills to all of our elementary students. Currently, we have 10 gifted programming programming specialists with only one in every elementary and middle school, so it is very difficult to adequately provide these services, especially in the higher enrollment schools. Ideally, funding of gifted programming would increase to provide additional staffing in every building, including our high schools where none exists currently. However, even the addition of just one staff member in the role of a gifted programming instructional coach would be beneficial in supporting all schools in the appropriate utilization of the levels of service model and provision of gifted services, thereby increasing the likelihood that each and every student has access to suitable talent development. Therefore, I respectfully request that in planning the direction of our district, the board consider supplementing our current gifted programming staff. Supporting the talents and gifts of our students helps them grow, flourish, and succeed, and furthers the reputation for academic excellence that our district enjoys. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Crystal is our only speaker signed up for our first public expression. Was there anyone else interested in addressing the board at this time? Hi, can you just state your name for us, please?
Gina Tirana.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm Gina Tirana. I'm a Williamsville taxpayer. I've raised 4 children in the Williamsville School District, and I have 22 dedicated years as a school bus driver for the Williamsville Central Schools. I have to say that I'm terribly disappointed that you've made the decision to dissolve the Transportation Department, the Williamsville Transportation Department, not only for my own personal reasons, but also for my coworkers who will all suffer the loss of our jobs, the loss of our medical benefits, and not be able to finish out our years with our pension. We'll have to start over at the bottom elsewhere with less pay. We are already low-wage workers. Many of us already are struggling to make ends meet. This is hitting us all extremely hard. I've always held Williamsville with such high regard and proud to be employed here. Williamsville District drivers have always been held to a higher standard, and we have always accommodated. In a day and age where every bus company around us is scrounging for drivers and unable to fill runs, you are throwing yours away. There are companies just waiting to get their hands on us. Our skills are in high demand, but sadly for us, we are not valued by our safety record, our dedication, and our long-term commitment to this community. I think you're doing a horrible injustice not only to us as employees, but also to the parents and taxpayers of the Williamsville Central District. This has intentionally been kept private and away from them, and I'm asking you to please seriously reconsider your decision, or at least put it up in a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening, Robert Moutry.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Moutry, M-O-O-T-R-Y, Jr.
Thank you.
I addressed the board at the last board meeting, and I talked about transparency. And at the last board meeting, I listened to the group talk about transparency and openness. Once again, we went back into impact negotiations, and we still haven't received the cost of contracting out the services. Almost like you're just pushing us away. So I'm asking, once again, to reconsider the decision to contract out the services. And I'm asking once again, what is the cost of contracting out these services? You know, how could you, I'm quite sure you're not gonna make an educated decision without knowing the numbers. So the numbers are somewhere. I'm asking you to give them to CSEA so we can make an educated decision on how we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you very, did you want to come? Come on up. Can you just state your name, please?
My name is Jeffrey Chen. I am a junior at Williamsville East High School. I feel the need to bring to the attention of the Board of Education that there are significant flaws with the way, at least in Williamsville High School, that the topic of mental health is addressed. Specifically, in my opinion, that there is inadequate training for teachers to personally be able to deal with students' mental problems at any given moment. Fundamentally, the issues we have in our personal lives are very near and dear to our hearts, and while we are generally recommended to go and see mental health professionals that reside in our schools, such as Mrs. Kasperzak for Williamsville East, these are people that we likely have not seriously interacted with before in the past, and teachers are the individuals that we are most likely to come forward with any issues that we may have, and they are in general sorely unprepared, at least in terms of professional training, to be able to adequately respond. That is all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Thank you very much to everyone who addressed the board this evening. We will have a second public expression later towards the end of our meeting as well.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7 personnel, 8 business, and 8 special needs and students activities as presented? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, second, please. Mrs. Van Cise, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I would like to thank the following list of retirees for their service to the district. Stephanie Brise, North High School science teacher of 33 years of service. Joni Cartone from Heim Elementary. She's an elementary teacher for 33 years of service. Diana Castile from Maple Elementary, Maple East Elementary, reading teacher, 22 years of service. Pompaya DeSanto from Mill Middle, a social worker for 24 years of service. Jody Gerasi from Mill Middle, the school nurse for 16 years and 10 months of service. Suzanne Grossman from North High School, a media specialist and librarian for 18 years of service. Marley Herberger from Dodge Elementary, a cook manager for 22 years and 9 months of service. Deborah Johnson from Mill Middle, special education teacher for 29 years of service. Deborah K. Whaler from Country Parkway Elementary, an elementary teacher for 29 years of service. Carol Kern from Maple West Elementary, another elementary teacher for 18 years of service. Carol, and I'm going to do my best not to kill this name, Carol Conchugulian from North High School, a business teacher for 24 years of service. Gail Littlefield, Transit Middle Language Other Than English, or what we call a LOTE teacher for 29 years of service. Carol Martinelli, Maple East Elementary, cook manager for 29 years, 9 months of service. Alan Miller, Maple East Elementary, elementary teacher for 32 years of service. Mary Volante, Maple West Elementary, an elementary teacher for 31 years of service. And Sandra Zion from Maple East Elementary, an occupational therapist assistant for 22 years and 9 months of service. Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on February the 12th, 2019? Bless you.
Bless you.
Mrs. Beeger, is there a second? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. The District Art Show was hosted at the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village. In attendance was Mrs. Leatherbarrow and Mrs. Van Sice. Mrs. Leatherbarrow, would you like to give us a brief report on this event, please?
Sure, I was able to attend the Tuesday night reception, which was for the high school. I was greeted by the sounds of talented students performing in a string ensemble, and they played throughout the evening. And I was able to enjoy lots of photography, drawings, paintings, and sculptures from K to 12, and they were just absolutely outstanding. I took some pictures, and I caught up with some friends, and I spoke to a few of the artists who were standing proudly next to their artwork, getting their pictures taken with their families. So it was just a really special night. And the weather was really not so cooperative, but the room was packed, and I was really happy to be there.
Thank you. The 16th Annual Safe Schools Initiative Seminar at the University of Buffalo will be held on Thursday, March 21st, 2019. This will be at the North Campus, 103 Center of the Arts, Buffalo, new 14260. Currently, I have down attending Dr. McClary. Is there anybody else that would like to attend? Nope. The Erie County Association of School Boards legislative meeting was held on Thursday, February the 28th, 2019. Mr. Mecca, do you have a brief report you could give us?
Sure do. Give me 1 second, please. There it is. Myself and Dr. McClary were at the legislative event, and I have the wrong one pulled up. You don't happen to have it up, do you?
No.
Sorry. Well, I'll go from memory. We discussed various items, and it does. There is one thing that we were discussing, which is an insurance reserve item. Some school districts at this point have legislation in the state assembly addressing just individual school districts and their need for an insurance reserve. So the Erie County Association of School Boards is wondering if we as a district individually would like to pursue our own legislation, or if we would like to try to create a legislation effort that would impact all school districts in the area. So what are your feelings about this?
I saw the email that came through asking about that earlier today. I would be interested in hearing what someone from the district would recommend for that situation.
I would recommend that it be for everybody. If you're going to have a new state law, it should apply to all school districts, not just certain select districts.
Seems logical, right? Should I report that as our official answer? Okay. I'm gonna lean on Dr. McClary here since she has it open. How nice, thank you. Good assist, thank you. I had the right one open. All right, never mind. We discussed the legislative breakfast, and we had 82 attendees at our Northern Williamsville breakfast, and there were 52 at the Southern breakfast. And we discussed that some people would like the possibility of building in additional mixer time to meet the representatives rather than just have them answer questions and respond in that way. They're going to create a smaller committee to do some goal setting for the legislative arm of the Erie County Association of School Boards. I think, Dr. McClary, did you volunteer for that, or am I imagining that?
You might be imagining.
Okay, all right, sorry. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. There's going to be a small group. I did not volunteer for that, just to be clear on that.
Maybe I did.
I think you might have. Maybe. There is legislation to watch with respect to New York State School Resource Officer Program, there's also legislation related to establishing a retirement contribution reserve fund coming up too. So That's about it. Sorry, I feel like it wasn't a really good summary there, but anybody have any questions?
Could you do that again? Just kidding.
It'd be better if I did.
Thank you, Mr. Mecca. The Get to Know Your BOCES open house, the Erie One Harkness Center, is going to be on Thursday, March 21st from 5:30 until, I don't have an end time, but I'm guessing about 8:30. This one is in our backyard, literally. This is less than a mile from my house. This is the Harkness Center that's on Arrow Drive. So if anybody board-wise would like to attend this, I know myself and Mr. Mecca so far have signed up for this. But this is the Harkness or the BOCES Center that's literally right behind the airport. So they've got some very interesting programs they offer there. Unfortunately, I was kind of looking forward to like, a trip up in a Cessna or something like that, but that won't be on the agenda for this evening. But they do actually do piloting and stuff like that as one of the classes they teach there. So is anybody else here willing or available to attend that evening? Nope. Okay. Prospective School Board Workshop, the Erie One BOCES, room B1, 355 Harlem Road, West Seneca, New York, will be held on April the 6th from 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. So anybody that's considering running for the board should consider attending this class to get an idea of what you're going to get in for. Registration through the Erie County Association of School Board for more information, and prospective candidates should contact the district clerk, Lynn Carey. Delegate Assembly meeting will also be held at the Erie One BOCES in West Seneca, Thursday, April the 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Myself and Dr. McClary will be in attendance at that meeting. The Scholastic Achievement Recognition, or SARD dinner, will be held on May 16th. That's a Thursday at 6:15 p.m. That'll be at Salvatore's on Transit Road here in Depew. I show down Mrs. Leatherbarrow attending that one. Thank you. The Erie County Association of School Board Annual Dinner will also be held at Salvatore's and Transit Road in Depew, Thursday, June 6th, 2019 at 5:15 p.m. I know it's a little far out. I guess it's just more of an FYI to put it on your calendars. I don't think we need to RSVP for that quite yet. Now, should a school board candidate become elected, the following are state mandatory trainings that need to be fulfilled within the first year of service. The Erie County Association of School Boards has 2 of them, as well as the New York State School Board. The new board member 6-hour governance training will be held on June the 8th. That is a Saturday from 8:45 until 3:30 p.m., again at the Erie One BOCES in West Seneca. The new board member 6-hour fiscal oversight responsibility training will be held, I believe it's the following Saturday, June 15th. Same location, Erie One BOCES in West Seneca, again 8:45 until 3:30 p.m. And last up, under the Erie County Association of School Boards, I have another FYI. The law conference will be held this summer, Wednesday, August 7th. This is an all-day event. This will be held at Salvatore's this year. I think previously this was at the Millennium. Does anyone have anything else to share under the Erie County Association of School Board? Nope. Okay, moving on. As I mentioned prior, the New York State School Board Association will also hold their own mandatory board election training. This will be 2 consecutive days back-to-back. This will be held in the New School Board Member Academy in Niagara Falls, New York, at the Sheridan on 303rd Street. This will be August 23rd and 24th. And again, these are all-day events. Our board retreat is scheduled and confirmed for March 30th this month. The board retreat will be held from 8:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. We have a NYSBA representative that will be facilitating this retreat, and we actually had a meeting this morning with this person to confirm the agenda. Looking to make sure that all board members are still planning to attend, as well as our assistant superintendents who have been invited to attend this as well. And we're also bringing in one individual from outside source company that we'll talk about more a little bit later in the agenda. Everybody still good for this day? Okay.
Yeah, but could you verify the time? Because I see 9 o'clock on.
9 a.m. is when we start. It's a light breakfast starting at 8:30. Till 1 p.m., correct.
Location?
Right here in this office.
Hoping maybe.
And if you need directions, you know. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to resolve to hold the annual district vote on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019, from 7 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. in the evening at the North High School Gym located at 1595 Hopkins Road, Williamsville, New York, 14221, and adopt the resolutions as presented to be submitted to the qualified voters at the annual district meeting and election? Mr. Meyer first, thank you. Is there a second? Dr. McClary, thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Board member terms that will end June 30th, 2019 for the following board members: Mrs. Mary Beeger, Mrs. Teresa Leatherbarrow, and Mrs. Suzanne Van Sice. At this time, these three incumbents have completed and turned in their board packets and will be on the ballot. Mrs. Carey, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, just wanted to note that board candidate packets are available at district office. There are also partial packets available online, and they are required. 65 valid signatures are required, and the deadline to turn in those petitions is Monday, April 22nd, by 5 p.m. That's it.
Great. Thank you. The annual Erie One BOCES meeting will be held on Wednesday, April the 10th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the Erie One BOCES offices in West Seneca. They will be presenting their tentative administrative capital and program budgets for the 2019-20 to 2020 academic year. At the annual Erie One BOCES meeting, they will also be reviewing the nominations for the April elections for the 3 board member seats, which carry a 3-year term. Section 1950, Subdivision 2 of the New York State Education Law provides that nominations of candidates shall be made by board resolution by component districts at least 30 days before the date designated for voting. Unlike the actual vote, there are no limitations to how many people can be nominated from each member district, or how many of these candidates come from within a given school district. However, only one individual can be voted to be on the board from any given school district. Candidates should be qualified to serve on the board and come from within the BOCES district itself. Presently, we have 3 candidates who are all incumbents seeking re-elections that have come forward requesting the board to nominate them for 3 trustee seats. We have been provided with their letters for review, and now I ask for somebody to make a nomination or nominate all 3, one by one, as candidates for the Erie One BOCES board. Dr. McClary, please.
I'd like to nominate all 3 of the individuals who have requested our backing. I know that it's Mr. Loeb, Miss.
I'm going to pause you right there. I'm going to do them one at a time. I believe by policy we have to do that. So you're asking for Andrew Loeb, okay? So Dr. McClary has moved to nominate Andrew Loeb, the incumbent located at the Hamburg Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April 16, 2019, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Education Services, 1st Supervisory District of Erie County, and a term beginning July the 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a second? Mr. Mecca, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, nomination carries unanimously. And Dr. McClary, back to you.
I apologize, I don't have the list in front of me.
Would you like me to help you with that?
Mary
Busey?
Mary Busey.
Okay, Dr. McClary has moved to nominate Mary Busey, an incumbent located in the West Seneca Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April the 16th, 2019, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, 1st Supervisor District of Erie County, and a term beginning July the 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a second? Mr. Meyer, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That leaves Mr. Raymond Carr.
I nominate Mr. Raymond Carr.
Okay, Dr. McClary has moved to nominate Mr. Raymond Carr, the incumbent located in the Lancaster Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April the 16th, 2019, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, 1st Supervisory District of Erie County, and a term beginning July the 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Is there a second? Mr. Meyer, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that. The board will vote to approve the administrative budget and the election of board members for the special board meeting on April the 16th, 2019 at 7 p.m. here in District Office Boardroom. If those who recall, this is a very short meeting of roughly 10 minutes. Board of Education school building visitations. The upcoming Board of Education building visitations include, and I am going to rattle off and who we've got, and please, as I'm doing this, check your schedules and see if there's any additional availability that you can attend. Starting with Friday, March the 22nd at 7:50 a.m. This is the East High School visitation. Currently, I show myself, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, and Mrs. Beeger. And please jump in if you believe you can add your name to this.
Can I put myself down as a probable?
As a probable? Mr. Meyer, you got it?
Thank you.
Friday, April 5th, 7:30 a.m., Heim Elementary. Right now, I am one member short on this board visit. I've got myself and Dr. McClary attending. Okay.
Add me.
Mrs. Beeger, is there anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Beeger.
You're welcome.
Monday, April the 15th, 7:30 a.m., Maple East Elementary. I show myself, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, and Dr. McClary. Friday, May 3rd, 8 a.m., Heim Middle. This is the rescheduled board visit that was lost due to a incidental snow day that just happened to come in the middle of the school week. I show down attending this myself, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, and Mr. Borenstein. Still good with the three of us, I believe. Okay. Friday, May 10th, 8 a.m., Country Parkway Elementary. I am short on this one as well. Currently, I show myself and Mrs. Leatherbarrow attending. I realize this is a month and a half, almost 2 months away, so.
I think I can do it.
Okay, Mrs. Van Sice is a maybe. Got it. Thank you. Monday, May 20th, 7:30 a.m., Dodge Elementary. Myself, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, and Dr. McClary. Mrs. Beeger, add your name to that as well. Okay.
Thank you.
And finally, June 5th, 8:15 a.m. is the district office visit. And right now I am also short one board member to this one. Myself and Mrs. Leatherbarrow are confirmed. Mrs. Beeger, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Van Sice, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Bornstein. Great, thank you. The next community forum will be at North High School, Saturday, April 6th at 9 a.m. I'm going to, I know I preach about this all the time. This is the opportunity for the community, for teachers, for staff, for assistant superintendents, for anyone with any interest at all in the district to come and have a two-way dialogue with the board. So I certainly encourage students who are sitting here in our audience this evening, if you have questions or comments. Unlike coming to the podium, like this evening, we're a meeting that's held in public, but we're not a public meeting. The community forum is an opportunity to have a two-way dialogue with the board and the superintendent, to discuss ideas, make suggestions, talk about things that work great in the district, things that could be improved upon. So that next opportunity, as I mentioned, is at North High School. That's a Saturday, April the 6th, from 9 a.m. until noon. I do need to get a count here at the table, though, of everybody that is able to attend. I know I am available, but is everybody who can, by a show of hands, let me ask you that. Who can make this? Okay, show everybody except Mrs. Leatherbarrow. Thank you. Great. Next thing on the agenda is kind of an open-ended discussion. We talked several months ago about adding a exit survey potentially as another mechanism, another instrument to gather two-way feedback from the community, or feedback, I should say, from the community. I'm bringing this back up because here we are in March, and if it was something we wanted to pursue for this year, it's probably something that we need to discuss a little bit more in depth. In your board packet is an example of a board survey that came from Amherst. Our district clerk was so great to reach out to them and get a copy of that so we could have an idea. This is only a suggestion. I don't have any prefabricated questions that we would want to put on it. We could potentially grab questions off of the various surveys that we've asked our stakeholders here, students and parents. We could, if you look at the example from the Amherst survey, They asked more specific questions as to why people were approving or not approving the school board budget or various issues that could be on it. But it's another mechanism at our disposal that we could utilize to gather more feedback and kind of give us a better idea of the direction for the community and the school district. So I wanted to kind of open it up here at the table for discussion. I presented the idea here several months ago, but I wanted to see what other people thought on this and what we should do. Mrs. Beeger.
I personally love this idea. I think that when the budget vote passes, it passes by a high majority, but there's still people who, if they are not voting in favor of the budget, I think it's a great idea to collect that information as far as why. And some of the questions here are interesting because it tries to break down why you voted in favor or why you voted in opposition. And I think that it's really helpful information for us to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to represent the community, and then also breaking it down as to what kind of stakeholder it is that's voting, if you have children in the school or have had children in the past, not at all, and what your main concerns are. My initial thought looking at this is paper pencil, which is one way to do surveys. There's a lot of quick ways to do it too. I was thinking even about having like a QR code or something real quick where people could scan it with their phones and have the option to do electronically there. I don't know, something quick, because I think people sometimes, if they're in and out or they grab paper, there's a lot of paper floating around that day and may lose some people. So if we are to go forward with doing something like this, I think talking about how to do it as quickly, efficiently, and not to have it too long, but to gather information that would be important for us. But I like the idea.
Great, thank you. Other individuals, comments? Mrs. Van Cise?
I'm in favor of this idea. I too like it. The one suggestion I would have is condensing it to one page. I think it's too long. I think you will lose the interest. We will not get appropriate feedback that is valid. It needs to be shortened. We need to collect data, but it needs to be concise and just definitely shortened. That's my initial thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Meyer?
Actually, Mark beat me to it. I'll let him go. Okay. So I guess in a way I'm really just parroting the two comments that just went before me, but I think it's a good idea. I would say it should be even more concise, though. Ask 3 or 4 material questions, because I think if people are coming in, they're voting, that in itself is a pretty quick thing to do, and then they just fill out 3 or 4 bubbles. You get the answers to a few material questions, and I think it's worth doing. So, and I think we can just do it with paper and pen.
Mr. Mecca.
So, is this different than the idea that you had proposed before about a survey? The survey we were talking about earlier was like a student exit survey. Is that different than this?
No, in December, this was the discussion that I had brought up originally. It was either November or December, was to gauge. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that I brought up in the fall was the senior exit survey. Yeah, this is a different idea. This is just something we would administer internally.
Strictly for the budget?
Strictly for the voters. Doesn't have to be budget necessarily related.
Okay.
But since we have thousands of voters, constituents coming out to cast their votes, now would be the opportunity to give them a short survey, and again, what the questions that would be on it would have to be figured out as well.
Okay. Given the format, it looks like it's administered it's hand scored by an individual that's volunteering to do this. So the voter themselves fills it out, right? It's not something that we need personnel to administer.
I would have to kick that question to Mrs. Carey, and I don't know that she knows the answer yet. I mean, we could look at electronic forms, we could look at paper forms, how we would tabulate the results of that. I would have to look to the district.
Okay. In principle, I like the idea.
Thank you.
Just a quick thought on that front. On that day in particular, there's a lot of students getting government hours, and I think they would make for excellent tabulators. So we can do that. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Mecca again?
Any cost associated with this aside from like printing? or anything like that, tabulating?
As we would be doing this in-house, and with the suggestion Mr. Myers made to use students to help us tabulate it, I think the cost would be literally just some labor to oversee it. So very minimal. Other comments, questions? This is not formally an action item, so I guess I would kind of kick this back to the district and Dr. Martzloff. What's the opinion of the district? Is this something that we could put together, and how would we formulate the questions that we would want to agree to put on this?
Well, we have a lot of choices here. I mean, it's certainly something we could do at the budget vote, but you do have to determine what you want to ask of all of our voters. Certainly, I think it would make sense to vote to ask something about the vote and kind of asking about people's degree of support for our school district at all levels. I think that's at a most basic level something that we should be asking our constituents. And then perhaps if there's other things the board would like to know from our community, we can add those questions as well. But I do agree with what Mrs. Van Cise said about keeping it shorter. It is a little bit long as the example in here, so we want to really encourage people to take part in it, and sometimes when it's too long, that may dissuade someone who has other things to do in their day on budget vote day. So that's my thoughts, but we'd be happy to facilitate it in any way the board would like.
Okay. Mrs. Carey, are there any concerns or comments to be able to administer something like this during the vote? I know there's laws and restrictions that obviously guidelines that have to be conformed to, but any other concerns or anything like that?
Just after, we would probably have them do the survey after they vote instead of overwhelming them with paper. And so they get their ballot, and then after they vote, they are asked if they would mind taking a brief survey.
Would that require us to set up a second section for them to be able to administer or to, pen in their answers?
I believe it would just be basically a table with maybe inspector there and a student volunteers helping.
Okay. Okay. It seems like we have enough support for this. I guess the next step would be to figure out what kind of questions we'd like to do. I like some of the questions I saw in this example here made sense, especially budget related. I'm curious that we don't get a lot of feedback from a lot of the constituents that aren't directly infected, directly related to the school district. If they're not a parent or a student or something like that. So I'd be curious as to some of these answers, or some of these questions, the answers to some of these. I guess we have to probably take that next step and figure out specifically what questions. Maybe we can come up with some ideas and shoot them into the district here, and we can maybe present them at our next board meeting. I'll kind of leave it open-ended like that and see where we can go with that. Great, thank you. PLC scope and strategic and long-term planning for the Williamsville Central School District. Dr. Martzloff, would you like to talk to us about this concept?
Sure. We've talked for a number of years about the opportunity to do a long-term plan in the Williamsville Central School District since the last one was done circa mid-1990s, and define our mission and what our belief statements are and what our goals are as a district here in Williamsville, and what we want education to look like for all students over the next 5 to 10 years. In order to do this work, I think it's critical to have lots of volunteers be part of that so that they have a say in what we're looking to do in terms of defining our goals and defining our mission and our belief statements. That's all critically important. But also, it's equally as important that it's not the school board's plan, it's not the superintendent or the leadership team's plan, it's not the principal's plan, it's not the teacher's plan, so on and so forth. It needs to be defined as the district's plan. This is what our district believes in and wants to do. So we think it would make sense to engage with a third party that would assist in that process of bringing everyone together, hearing from all of our constituents, and working to put together a plan such as this. I've had discussions with people around Western New York who have endeavored into such a project. And the one group that kept coming up and being mentioned in such a positive light was PLC Associates. And so there's some information for the board in terms of a scope of work on this item in your agenda that talks about what PLC Associates is and would do to assist the Williamsville Central School District through this process. So I wanted to get feedback from the board and on what you thought about it. We don't need to take a vote or anything like that, but I would like a sense of direction, if you will, from the board in terms of our potential engagement with PLC Associates. So open it up to the board.
Mrs. Beeger.
I'm going to share a personal experience because in my role as an educator in another school district close by, I've been involved in this work from this company, and it has been very, very productive as far as kind of setting a path for our district. It's not just creating a vision, putting words on the page. It's really what these people did when they came in. It's not like they tell us what to do. They really do a beautiful job of organizing different stakeholders and bringing in different opinions, thoughts, and ideas to create a vision and a strategic plan. So it's not just this is what we want and now we're done with our statement. It's really putting an action plan behind it and thinking through what everybody wants from the district and how we're going to get there. So from my own personal experience with PLC Associates, and I actually did not work in the initial, in my experience, you start with initial planning and the vision. I wasn't part of that group, though all stakeholders are involved in that. But then once they create different task force, per se, to go along with those missions, I was part of that as an educator, one of the task force. And so I felt very much a part of a process that I believed in, and I think it's been very good for the school district where I work. So I was very, very happy to see this because something like this, I think, gains traction when all stakeholders are able to sit down and talk about what they really think would be in the best interest for kids, for student achievement, and it's not just about academics, it's about whatever the district decides. So I was pleased to read this information here, and I think it's a fantastic idea for our district here in Williamsville personally.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Leatherborough.
Just want to say a few points. The last time the district's mission and belief system was created and examined was 1995. That was the year I graduated from high school. Great year. Long time ago, though, because this year I have a daughter graduating from high school. I'm also excited about this group because it's a woman-owned and operated organization, and I think that's important that we have females involved in the goal-setting process for our district. And also, I just want to also add that Dr. Martzloff and I have had conversations about this in the past, and I appreciate your leadership in acknowledging that currently a lot of decisions have been top-down, and there's a desire to change that and make it more inclusive. Our district looks differently than it did the year I graduated from high school, and I'm happy to be a part of this process going forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Van Cise?
I was actually going to just add on that, too. I think after reading this, I believe that, yes, it says the blueprint for success. It's definitely a key to Williamsville continuing to be successful. I love when they talk about data gathering, that they're talking about focus forums also, which is extremely important to have those forums and to gain the knowledge and input from all stakeholders. So I think this is an excellent plan, and I would be in favor of definitely utilizing it for our district.
Thank you. Any other comments? I will add a couple things to this. One, the cost. I've been associated with long-term strategic plans with various companies and organizations that I've worked with over the years. I will be the first to tell you that when I saw the cost of this, my eyes popped out of my head. For the opposite reason you might think. It's extremely inexpensive for what they're offering, what they're doing, for the year-long plus work that they're going to offer us. This is half to almost 2/3 less than what in the business world this same package goes for. And what makes this even more appealing to us is that this is aidable, which makes this, mere pennies on the dollar, so to speak. So it's an incredibly great bargain. But really what drove this home for me personally, other than the information gathering, which was a strong piece to this, I mean, they're going to be gathering information from everybody, back to students, to parents, to teachers, to the custodial staff, to the cooks, to anybody anywhere in our district. They're going to be asking questions and trying to gather information as to how we do things, the way we do things, and what we can do to make this better. And that will help us with our goal setting process. Specifically, like Mrs. Leatherborough said, that top-down mentality is how we've operated all these years, and we need to change that and try and make this more of a collaboration, that everybody has equal information and equal say to try and help gauge and steer the direction of the district. I think, though, the number one thing that really impressed me the most out of this was that the day after they present this to us, they're going to help us start to formulate how we put it into action. So they're not going to just give us this data and say, okay, go figure it out, and then the district of our size, or any district, falls on their face because they gather the information, they have all good intent to do something with it, but a week, a month, 6 months later, they've done nothing. This company is going to specifically hold the district's hand and help us through the action plan to actually put the tires to the pavement and get us moving from day one, so that way we can actually put what we've learned here to good use. So I'm excited about this. This is the representative that we've asked to also join us on our retreat, so that they can kind of gather some information from our goal setting process and see how we're doing it, how we're going to do it, and that sort of stuff, and then hopefully give us even more input in the long term. So, Mrs. Leatherborough.
Yeah, because you mentioned the cost. The notes I took from our phone conference was that it was $48,950 quoted to us, but then because it's going to be BOCES aidable, it would bring the cost down to $18,000. So that is what Mr. LeMay was referring to with the price.
Yep. And plans like this for companies are well over $100,000 plus. I mean, I was a part of one just 3 years ago, and it was a nonprofit organization, and it cost them $130,000 to do this similar strategic plan. So, thank you again. Moving on, Dr. Martzloff, I think that brings us to your community update, please.
Thank you, Mr. LeMay. Just very briefly, I've had a chance to attend a number of school events, including the Section 6 girls basketball final with South High School defeating Grand Island. It was a terrific game, a wonderful effort by the girls from South, and I was happy to see them come out on top. I'm looking forward to our board retreat. I really think we have a terrific focus on the future and a focus on what's going to be best for students in Williamsville, which sometimes doesn't get talked about as much as it should be, could be, and but definitely will be here in the immediate future. I also look forward to our community forum. That's a great opportunity to have discussion, as Mr. LeMay mentioned earlier, with all of our community members about issues that are facing the district and items we want to look to address to improve our school district. So all those things coming up is a terrific opportunity to focus on what's best for our students, and I look forward to continuing those discussions soon. So thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to one of the most important items on the agenda. You seniors that are here probably don't care about this, but parents and anybody else in the district comes to the 2019-2020 school academic calendar. I know we try to plan vacations around the vacations the school district has. So would someone like to make a motion to resolve to adopt and approve the 2019-2020 student calendar as presented? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Second? Mr. Mecca, appreciate that. Any discussion? Once again, Dr. Martzloff, how many snow days are in this calendar? Do you know off the top of your head?
Hopefully at least 14.
14.
Well, it's not that high. It's probably 6 that are involved.
6,
Been
okay.
a little more stringent on the snow days the last couple of years since some things changed at the state level.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Meyer, I didn't see your hand. Were you in favor?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the property tax settlements and transfer accounts from the tax tertiary fund number 13A through 13D as presented in your board packet? Mrs. Beeger, is there a second? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. If you have any liaison or conference reports, please send them to Mrs. Carey. Please let your board members know if you're unable to attend a meeting so that another board member is able to cover for you. Does anyone need coverage for any upcoming PTSA, PTA meetings, or any other county meetings or anything like that? Yes.
I'm going to need coverage, but it's for a May meeting, so I'm sure those calendars aren't ready to do that yet.
A maybe coverage for a maybe in the future. Okay, well, let us know, please.
Definite coverage.
Why don't you give no ideas?
Are there any legislative matters that anyone wants to discuss? Okay, no curriculum matters this month, no personnel matters this month.
Actually, can I ask one?
Yes,
The
Mrs. Leatherbaugh.
legislative matter, I don't know where this is, but I saw that there's a proposal for, I think the way I read it was that teachers would be responsible for notifying law enforcement if they suspected an issue to have guns removed from the families or from the homes. Did anyone else see that recently? It looked as if it was like some type of compromise on gun safety legislation, but it was putting the onus on the school instead of the onus on whoever's selling the guns. So I don't know if anyone else saw that recently. I don't know where it's at, but I know it's part of New York State.
Well, that definitely shifts the burden onto
Nobody saw it. Okay.
duly to us, but
I think the idea is, as Mrs. Leatherbarrow stated, to allow guns to be removed from a home where there's concern about the mental health of the individual in the home. But we have not heard anything from the State Education Department or anywhere else that says that this law has gone into effect and what types of guidelines they would issue for us to implement it. So if we do, we'll certainly present that to the board.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
thank you. Dr. Martzloff, would you like to give us the district facilities and support services update, please?
Yes, there's just a number of items that are listed in your packet about pertinent information of some of the facilities work that has been ramping up. And I'd really like to, at this point, say thank you to Mr. Matursky, Mr. Langlotz, our Director of Facilities, and their whole crew that have worked in partnership with our architects and construction manager to bring all this to completion. So thank you for your hard work on that.
I would like to follow that up and actually say congratulations to you, Dr. Martzloff, and Mr. Matursky and his team, coming in $4.5 million under budget. That's a substantial number, and that is worthy of an applause.
Actually, that's just from over budgeting that project.
Dr. Martzloff, would you like to give us the proposed repair reserve project update, please?
I'll turn this one over to Mr. Matursky to share with the board some of the items that are being recommended.
Thank you, Dr. Martzloff. As the board knows, this year and in the past years, we do repair reserve work in the summer, and that's been a critical aspect to our maintaining our buildings, our schools, and our parking lots. And this year, we're scoping out the work at a number of schools. We're going to look at doing some sidewalk and curb replacement work here at Casey Middle School. I think you've all noticed how the sidewalk has been degraded with plowing and the curbs are crumbling, so that's going to be repaired. Over at the Heim Elementary, Heim Middle School, we're going to do some repair work on that driveway and parking lot. By doing this, it actually preserves it for a few years to go. It makes that pavement last longer, so that's going to be a project we're going to be working through. Similarly, we're going to be doing sidewalk work at a number of other buildings, East High School, South High School, and then some general items where, as the spring comes and the thaw really turns into spring, we'll see that there'll be more cracking of sidewalks, and we'll be looking to replace those sections. The other major piece of this work really is around doing some flooring replacement at our elementary schools. They have a lot of old tile in those classrooms, and although we try and do a lot of this in our capital projects, this allows us to do a little bit more of that and address the areas where there may be rugs that really need to be replaced. And so we're going to be doing that at Country Parkway, Dodge Elementary, Forest Elementary, Heim Elementary, Maple East. We're going to be doing it at all those schools. And then aside from that, we're doing, some maintenance work that really requires specialized electrical service to come in for high voltage maintenance of the switchgear, and that is over at North High School. And that switchgear also is what powers Casey Middle School and district offices. So that will be done if all things work out and if everything is approved on July 3rd.
Any questions from board members? I have one question, and I believe it's already been addressed, but perhaps under this, I'm not sure. South High School's auditorium sound system is in, I don't know that it can make it to the capital improvement project to fix it. Is that something that can be added into this this reserve repair budget, or is that something else that we can find budget for?
I think part of the answer to that question is, as our capital project is really very much underway, we have an acoustical consultant who is going to be looking at every classroom space that's touched by this, as well as the auditoriums. We're actually meeting with all the schools in this month, and we have asked him to take a more detailed look at South. And if we can buy some equipment prior to the project actually beginning, we're going to definitely do that. But we want to use his consultation because he will be doing the acoustical items in that aud, and we don't want to have any conflicting equipment that would actually then create a problem down the road.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Any other board member questions? Mrs. Leatherborough.
Looking at the list of expected repairs, I'm just thinking about our school board visits during the year, and when in visiting Forest, it was made clear that there's concerns about the heat, and I don't know if that's something that can be examined somewhere in the future. Can you comment on that at all?
Forest heating system is actually quite new, so to speak, in years of service. It was put in about 8 years ago. I know what you're talking about. We had a couple days when there's two boilers there, when one of the boilers was down. And I know our maintenance crew is in there. What we will do in the summertime for boilers like this is we actually take them apart and we do a full maintenance. So I will definitely check with the facilities department, and we will do something similar to that at the Forest boilers to make sure that they are the best that we can make them.
Thank you. That's good to know. And then also looking at this, the high middle parking lot being paved, is that like the cut through that goes all the way across from Heim Road to the neighborhood there? Is that what you're talking about, repaving?
We're going to focus more on the actual parking lot itself than that, but that may become part of it. It depends once we get the architect in and he does the final analysis. But we really, if you look at that parking lot, it's cracking. We've tried to seal it in other years. We've done what they call the crack filling and sealing, but it really requires something a little bit more. So I'm not so sure if we're going to do the cross through, but we may do that also.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We will now have a public hearing for the proposed repair reserve projects. Anyone wishing to address the board should go to the podium and sign in now, please, at this time. do reserve your comments to the repair reserve that has been presented, please. No one? Okay. That will conclude the repair reserve hearing. Would someone like to make a motion to resolve to adopt and approve the repair reserve funding as presented? Mrs. Van Zice, is there a second? Dr. McClary, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Does anyone have a request or matter to discuss under the committee of the whole? Mrs. Leatherbarrow.
I just wanted to ask, let me get my notes. Since the New York State assessments are starting again the first week of April for grades 3 through 8, and not much has changed in terms of their relevance to our students' achievement, I'm curious if any changes have been made here at the district side in terms of protocol for parents choosing to opt out.
We have not made any changes to protocols for parents to opt out. We have put together a letter from the district that principals are sending out to families, informing them of the process and what we would like to see happen as part of that process, and letting parents know what the rules are if a student does decide to refuse the tests.
Great, and those rules are remaining the same.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mrs. Van Zice?
I would just like to address, and I guess this is more discussion, not asking if that we have an action item for this, but we are aware that Williamsville South students, the senior class, came forward and requested that their caps and gowns go to a one color for graduation. We believe that Mr. Boardman, they discussed it at the high school level for within Williamsville South. They do plan on doing it, I believe, next year, correct? Not this year. So what I am recommending, and maybe just for further discussion, is that all three Williamsville high schools consider going to a one color graduation gown. Our times are changing. We need to change with that. I think it's one of those past practices and always the best practice. The seniors at South stated the rationale. I think it's incredible and very mindful rationale. So I believe that I would love to see all three Williamsville schools move to a one color. And that's not really for us to determine as a board. I think the schools would need to decide whether they want to go to their own color. Maybe they want to do all one color across the district, and then their shawls would be the color. That's for each school, I guess, and the leadership team and administration to decide that. But I would love to see our schools do that. I did call around to several districts: Lancaster, Sweet Home, Orchard Park, Lockport, Star Point. I could tell you all 5 schools I have one color. Clarence, this is the last year that they are doing gender-based color. They already have a plan implemented to do one color next year. I believe Williamsville needs to move in that direction.
Any other comments or questions on our committee of the whole? Mrs. Beeger.
I'm going to ask a question. I apologize because it kind of bounces back to Mrs. Leatherbarrow's question, but just thinking about state testing, with state testing and the conversation, I know often around state testing, parents ask about field testing because sometimes what happens in preparation for state tests, school districts are asked to administer field tests to students, which is additional assessment, but it doesn't really have any relevance for the teachers. It's really just more for the testing companies. Dr. Matzliff, does our district use field testing for our students?
We are one of the only districts in Western New York that does not take part in field testing for the elementary grades. We do take part in field testing for certain high school regents exams. That we have found that to be a helpful process for educators, for our teachers. So we'll continue that, but we have no plans to participate in grades 3 through 8.
I am very glad to hear that. We're still continuing on with that. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
On the topic of state mandated testing, is there any update regarding the mandated use of electronic testing? Any rumblings on that?
We don't have an update right now, but we're not planning to participate in that until it becomes a true mandate.
Are there any other correspondences anyone would like to discuss this evening? Nope. We will now conduct our second public expression with the same rules as outlined from our first public expression. Anyone wishing to address the board should go to the podium and please sign in at this time.
Hi, Crystal Kaczmarek-Bogner. I would just like to add something about what Ms. Van Cise was saying. There was a very heated discussion among South parents. I am a South parent about the change of the graduation gown color. And when I looked into it, it looks like there were guidelines sent from the state education department several years ago about changing all dress codes to be non-gender based dress codes, and I was sort of surprised that our district hadn't done anything about it at this point. So those are my comments there. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to recess the regular board meeting? Mrs. Van Cise, is there a second? Oh, Mr. Borenstein, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I would like to call the Budget Public Forum to order. All board members are present except Dr. Venator. Dr. Martzoff, would you like to start the 2019-2020 primary budget presentation for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Lemay. This evening, we'd like to present to you the preliminary budget for 2019-20. Certainly, this is an ongoing process, and we're going to continue to work on this right up to the time in April when the board will look to adopt the budget that will be placed in front of voters at the May vote. So looking at our budget planning, we have certain planning priorities, and that's to preserve our academic and extracurricular programming for students, including girls hockey. As you can see the pictures there of our student athletes who were here earlier this evening. We want to build and manage a fiscally responsible budget that taxpayers can support, and we want to prioritize expense reductions and maximize potential savings, particularly those savings that are away from the classroom setting. So our expense for program continuation is about $3.6 million in an increase for employee salaries, a little over $400,000 for Social Security, $400,000 each for BOCES and health insurance, and then contract services and supplies, a $450,000 increase, which adds up to almost $5.3 million. Some of the areas we're looking at for potential additions, one would include $100,000 for languages other than English, which would allow us to teach Mandarin Chinese at the high school. We just had our staffing meetings last week with our middle school and high school principals, and we have enough student demand to fund a full-time teacher between the three schools at the high school level. We want to continue our second year of enhancing the administrative support at the elementary schools. That's transitioning part-time TOSA positions into 10-month administrative positions for 2 more schools. For this coming school year, it would be at Country Parkway and Forest where that would happen, and then we'd have 1 more year to complete this project. So looking at our program continuation and program support, we're looking at a budgeted increase of a little over $5.5 million. So we need to find some anticipated expense reductions, so we're recommending decreasing our utilities budget by $75,000, TRS due to a rate reduction by $425,000, $500,000 due to teacher retirements, Facility repair reserve be down a little over $8,000. Our computer supplies would decrease by $50,000, and our legal budget we would recommend, based on our historical context, be reduced by $100,000. All these expense reductions would add up to a little over $1.1 million. So what would this look like overall? You have the base budget, expense increase, and then the expense reduction. So we'd be looking at a 2019-20 preliminary budget total of $195,184,838. That's a budget-to-budget percentage increase of 2.29%. Our tax cap in Williamsville is 3.18%. And this budget for revenue recommends an increase of 3.15%. This is consistent for what we've done over the last 7 years, with the tax cap being in law is to be slightly under the tax cap in terms of what we're allowed to ask our community for with a simple majority vote. So looking at it from a revenue standpoint, the tax levy would bring in an additional $3.875 million. State aid, if you notice, is still only $363,491. So despite what you may read or see in the news, our state aid in Williamsville is less than 1% in terms of an increase from this year to next year. Other revenue would increase a little over $130,000, so our revenue increase would be almost $4.4 million, which balances excuse me, with our expense increase. So our estimated tax levy increase would be 3.15%, and that estimated tax rate increase, we won't know that until the summer, would be about 2.36%. What does the preliminary budget allow us to do? It allows us to maintain current levels of instructional and extracurricular programming for students, certainly one of our areas of focus. Maintains a focus on physical, mental, and emotional well-being of students at all levels. Again, introduces Mandarin Chinese as a new high school elective course. Continues to offer expansive AP course selection and supports university and college partnerships, such as our new college partnership with Damon College, where we're going to be offering our high school students at least 5 college courses that they can take tuition free this coming summer and earn a college transcript while they're still in high school. Other things the budget allows us to do is to provide more classroom supply funds that will reduce extra costs for parents. It will also help alleviate some of the concern around parents having to pay for certain items, such as specific field trips or specific books in different areas. So we believe we've identified all those areas that we're going to be able to reallocate some of our supply funds to. It continues to support the second year of a 3-year plan to strengthen administrative support at the elementary level. And if you can see from that picture there, they certainly need that. And then it continues to support a high level of professional development for all teachers and staff members. We want to make sure that all of our teachers and staff members have an opportunity to continue to learn and grow while they are employed in our school district. And it keeps the tax levy increase below the state tax cap, which speaks to being fiscally responsible. So where are we now? We are now at our March 12th board meeting and budget forum. We have on March 26th a budget work session where we will again present our preliminary budget and ask for feedback from our community. And then on April 9th, we'll look to adopt our proposed budget, with our budget hearing taking place on May 9th, along with our PTSA School Board Candidates Night, with May 21st being the date for the budget vote and school board election. So happy to answer any questions or talk about any items for the budget, in the budget, not in the budget, whatever the board would like.
Dr. Borenstein.
Thank you. Excellent job to everyone who worked on this, and clearly I wouldn't even suggest changing any of the aspirational parts of the budget. But if we could go back to the expense reduction lines, I noticed that the maintenance and repair estimated reduction was quite modest at about $8,000. If I'm reading that correctly, I'm wondering if there's more facility repair reserve that we can squeeze out of that line and just reduce some of the expenses even further.
Mr. Matursky, you want to comment on that question?
We do use those dollars in our budget to partially fund some of the initial expenditures that are related to the repair reserve. So what you approved tonight in the repair reserve hearing. The expenses that we normally do, as you know, in today's meeting, they were about $900,000. The budget is only around $200,000. So we have to pay architect fees and a lot of this stuff up front. So if we were to do that, we then would be having a little bit of a being behind from the very beginning on that. It would result in possible changes in the funding and maybe reduction of the reserve in the future. But you know, it's not impossible, but it is something that we would possibly look at you know, in the future.
Well, thank you. At the risk of pushing the envelope a little bit more, again, I'm not suggesting that we change our programs and services. It's what makes the Williamsville School District exceptional. But I'm wondering if you would characterize these expense reductions as painful or generic.
I would characterize them as necessary.
Necessary. Okay, well then I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to push these numbers down even further without it impacting the programs and services that we provide and should provide.
I guess what I would say is that you know, this is one area within the budget. Each area that we look at, we always are looking not just at the current year, but we're looking at the future years. So when we develop the budget as a leadership team, we're always looking at a current and future. And if we reduce the budgets in areas that are more than what would be necessary in a given year, then we will have to address that in the future.
At the risk of pushing this even further, did we just not post, or are we anticipating a significant balanced budget this year?
Well, right now we would have a balanced budget with the revenue and the expense where we're at right now.
And what is that $4 million figure we were describing before? It's not the deficit, it's the other side.
We have roughly, as you saw, we had to reduce almost $2 million from the $5.5 million. So we have an increase that's the 2.29%.
Yeah.
So that's where we stand right now.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and the revenue is equal to the expenditures.
Right. Okay, maybe I didn't make my point clearly enough, but are we showing a budget surplus anticipated this year?
Each year we hope that we have a budget surplus. If we don't, we have a financial stress situation.
Yeah.
Right, correct.
And so this year we are anticipating a budget surplus?
This year we will be having a slight budget surplus, correct.
Okay. Well, again, not to push it beyond this point, but I think it's incumbent upon us to consider pushing down or pushing these expenses as far as they would go every year as representatives of the community as well as the school children. Well,
understood.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Bornstein.
Yes, sir.
Are you looking to fund something specific? Are you just looking to reduce the budget? Are you looking to reduce the tax increase? What is your goal?
Yeah, the goal is not, I don't have anything in particular in mind to fund, but I think if we could sharpen our pencils and push down the proposed budgets, I think there would be some in the community who would be pleased by that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. McCleary.
On that same page, it's, I think, just a short question. I'm curious, I'm certainly pleased to see these numbers. On utilities, what would be some examples that you would do or suggest or implement that would reduce or, $75,000? What would you do on the utilities?
Mr. Machersky already turned the heat off at Forest Elementary
Just
School.
because I've been turning the heat down further.
Thank
you. And I think I was going to say, yeah, in our room.
What we do there is our utility budgets are built, and they have not been increased for, I would say, about 7 years. We have been very fortunate with as you know, the Amherst Utility Co-op to be getting very good pricing, and that has really been more of a national trend that's been going. But as we all know, and going back to what I put in the long-range plan in December, the United States Energy Resource Division has stated that natural gas prices are going up, as well as electric. So what we have done here is we've used a little bit of some dollars that have been in those codes, hoping in some ways leveraging the fact that they're not going to go up further and next year. So that's what we're doing here. We're just taking a little bit out, almost what Mr. Bornstein has requested, to try and sharpen our pencils there.
All right, thank you.
Other comments, questions from board members? Mrs. Beeger?
Very impressive presentation, thank you. I liked the visuals that went along with what we're maintaining too. That was very nice, so thank you. And great work. As far as the cost, when you talk about how much more our budget's increasing, for me in the past it's been really helpful to then narrow that down to what that means for a household making a income per se of $100,000, what that increase would feel like in their tax bill, because I think when the numbers seem this large, it seems like there's a huge increase, but when you put it into perspective of what that would mean for me and the tax bill I pay, are we prepared to make that kind of estimation yet, or is it still too early in the process to say that?
We normally do that when we present the budget for potential adoption.
Okay.
And that's when we also will look at, for example, 5-year trends. What has our tax levy increase looked like over the last 5 years? What's the average for that? Same thing with tax rate. And we're fortunate in our district because it's been pretty stable over the years in terms of that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Leatherborough?
Last month, the proposed units of study showed $100,000. Can you just tell me a little bit about how that became budget neutral?
We're not adding the $100,000.
Oh, it just wouldn't be added at all?
Correct.
Okay, I thought it said continuing it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then with the supply funds, I know we took some good steps this year, but there are some classes, woodworking, for example, comes to mind, where the students pay a fee for their project, even though their project is a requirement of the course. With this supply fund being intentionally added to the budget, would courses like that still have required student fees?
We have a draft that we've worked out that I can share with the board at a later date addressing some of those fees. And some of the fees, the one you mentioned for technology, being that it's very specific and for a specific individual project, would most likely continue to be paid by the student and the student's family. However, a number of other items, such as certain books that get annotated in, certain field trips, things of that nature, we would be providing the dollars for that, or they would be coming from other groups such as the PTA.
Thank you. And my final question was related to the news this week that there were some proposed federal cuts to the school lunch program. Can you tell me a little bit about what we would do in a situation like that if that were to happen?
Mr. Materski?
Our school lunch program is solely funded, so the district really doesn't provide any additional funding. So what they would most likely have to do is raise the lunch prices.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? Mrs. Van Cise?
I just have one question, Dr. Martzoff. If, and gosh knows this is a big if, we ended up finding out that there was more state aid coming to us. Do you already have a potential plan of what we would see that you would like implemented as our next line, or would it come back to discussion, or?
We can certainly make recommendations about that, but looking at it through our lens, as we've done for the last number of months, it would probably make the most sense to be as conservative as possible, and to consider saving any increase in state aid on April 1st versus, March for the next
That's
budget
perfect.
season.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I want to say thank you. I know this is a difficult budget this year. I'm disappointed to see a lot of the extras that we wanted, counselors, social workers, mental health, stuff like that's not able to be added this year. But, with the requirements from the state and whatnot, I completely understand where we're coming from. Mr. Materski, I thank you over the past few years, and I mean no disrespect to Mr. Bornstein here, but I know that you working all year long, working on various levels of trying to find ways that we can cut numbers and budgets. I know the 4 years that I've been on the board here, utility costs, fuel, all of those expenses you're constantly bringing back to the board and looking at new ways that we can bring those numbers down. So I know, while maybe not in the budget per se, that we're looking to cut even further. I know you are actively looking at that all year long for us, and I respect and appreciate the work that you do on that side. So outside of that, I have no other questions or comments. I do hope that we would find some more money, but I do understand your answer too, that we would rather to reserve that. So without any other questions, I would like to open this up to a public forum. Anybody here in the audience that would like to address the board can go to the podium at this point, sign in. Again, please keep your questions related to the budget. Any comments, questions, concerns, and we'll be glad to answer them for you here.
Hi, my name is Dana Floriano. I'm a student in the UB Lifts program for educational administration, and one of the requirements is that I attend the entire calendar of a school district for their budget workshops to learn about how the school budget comes together and how the board makes decisions on the priorities of their budget. At the last meeting, Mr. LeMay, you just shared that there were additional expenses that you had identified specifically around mental health, professional development, instructional technology, an equipment fund, so that you had a net expense increase of $6.7 million. And as we saw today, that has been reduced to $5.5 million. If you could just share with me how those decisions were made, so that I can have a better understanding of the process that took place.
I can share that with you. Essentially, those were a lot of items we'd like to do. We would prefer to focus on and have in place for next school year. However, given the revenue restrictions that we have going into next year, we had to not only reduce all those items and take those away, but also, as you can see from the current slide, reduce almost $1.2 million more in order to balance revenue with expenses. So we're required by law to present a balanced budget. If we don't, our school district could get in some very serious trouble very quickly. So that's why we did that. All the things you mentioned and Mr. LeMay and others have mentioned are things we would like to do for our school district and for our children. But if we don't have the revenue to pay for it, we can't do all those things at this current time.
May I ask a follow-up question? With the proposed third-party administrator helping you prepare for a new district mission and goals, do you think that that will be impactful if you do go forward with that process? Do you think that will be impactful on your budget process, and in what ways?
I think it will be impactful on our budget process, and one of the key ways is to boil down what is it that we're all looking for our school district. What kinds of experiences do we want our children to have K-12? And by doing that, that helps guide our budget decisions. Instead of sitting here and planning a budget, let's budget a plan. Okay, there's a difference there, and we want to make sure that we do that as much as possible for the future, so that it's based on what our entire community has come together, talked about, thought about, reflected on, provided feedback on, and come up with our plan for our students in Williamsville.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for volunteering your time for the students. I work for Buffalo Public Schools, and so I've attended multiple board meetings them. So I just want to say that your level of engagement and the level of time that you dedicated to all of the information that's presented to you is definitely appreciated.
Thank you. Good luck in your program.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
Thank you.
Mrs. Beeger?
Can I want to follow up on what you asked about that
Sure.
budgeting the plan versus planning the budget, because as I mentioned earlier this evening, that I've experienced working with a company like this firsthand. And so, for example, we had talked about we want very much to support social emotional health in our students. And so something that every school would love would be an extra counselor. In our experience in the district where I work, one of the things we talked about was just that even if you add a person, if there's no plan behind that, it may just be, of course that's useful, but if that person's working one-on-one, but the work that we've done in one of our focuses that we decided in our district was social emotional wellness of students. So we talked about how we want these people to be used and what kind of PD we want around that, not just for the counselor, but also for teachers, which is interesting because we had a young man come tonight and speak about that. So spending the money on that kind of thing, that kind of planning for me as a board member, to see that people have come together and thought very specifically, not just about adding positions and, you know, we're going to add $120,000 worth of counselors, but some of those things are budget neutral, more powerful if there's a plan behind how to use our personnel. So I'm excited about that, and I think that when you hear, oh, we're not going to add counselors, that it seems like we're abandoning this idea of supporting the social health of our children, and I don't think that's the case. I think we're just looking to be more strategic and work with the impressive personnel that we already have, and using a little bit of support and facilitation in that way to become stronger. So while this shows, yes, we took those things off the table, I don't think that we're abandoning the idea of supporting mental health. So thank you.
Sure, that's very accurate. Thank you, Mrs. Beeger. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the budget public forum? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, is there a second? Mr. Meyer, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to return the regular board meeting? Mrs. Van Cise, second. Dr. McClary, discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Going through a lot of motions here. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss school security, employment matters relating to particular persons, collective negotiations with the transportation union, and negotiations with the assistant superintendents? Mr. Meyer, second. Mrs. Leatherbarrow, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session? Mr. Meyer, second. Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Our next board meeting will be Tuesday, March 26th, which will be the budget work session at 7 p.m. And our next regular board meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 9th at 7 p.m. Both will take place here in district office. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, second. Mrs. Van Cise, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Good night.